Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeff Balanoff, and with me is now Mark Souza. He will be here on Monday. So, let's get right into it. We got Week 17 to talk about. We got playoff scenarios to talk about. We got drafts positioning to talk about. But let's get right into Week 17 matchups, because we got some matchups that actually have a lot of playoff matches at stake. But as always, we're going to talk about each and every matchup in as much detail as we can, because, that's our job. But we got to talk about the meaningless games first. First game, meaningless, goes to Dolphins and Bills, because, honestly, the draft positioning is on the line here for the losing team wins this one in reality. Because if Dolphins go 7-9, I feel like they'll be a better position than 8-8. But honestly, the Bills would get more of an advantage going 5-11. They probably will get a top 5 pick in this draft if they lose against the Dolphins. But this is in Buffalo, and Buffalo is actually favored to win by a whopping 5.5 points. So I guess the question is, who you got in this? It's pretty hard to think about, really. Because, one, you have Josh Allen on one side, you got Ryan Tannehill on the other, and we'll talk about how these two seasons came about. Buffalo went in the season with Nathan Peterman as the starting quarterback, and we all know how that turned out. Arguably one of the worst quarterbacks in recent memory, just due to the fact that his interception to pass ratio was the highest ever. It just seemed like every time he threw the ball, there was a 70% chance it was going to be intercepted, 80% chance, and that's being generous. Then they played Josh Allen and destroyed the Minnesota Vikings. And Josh Allen was in and out of the lineup a lot due to injury. They put him back in Nathan Peterman, who just kept struggling. Then they kept signing older quarterbacks like Derek Anderson and Matt Barkley. Matt Barkley actually won a game for them, so he was already better than Nathan Peterman based off that. And Nathan Peterman was officially cut from the team, surprising nobody. Some people said, that might be a little too late to do that, just due to the fact of how long he was on the team for. And Nathan Peterman signed with the Raiders, which shocked a lot of people. Honestly, it shocked me too. I thought he would be going to a practice squad contract or something like that in the middle of the offseason, not so early after his exit from the Bills. And there was a lot of talk like how come Kaepernick and all these other quarterbacks are not in the NFL, but Derek Anderson still is. That's just the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately for them. And when you look overall at the fact that the Bills they're coming off the playoff appearance for the first time in a millennium, because the last time they made it was 1999 in the infamous game, which led to the Music City Miracle. And overall, you also have to put the fact out that this team just needs more and more of a rebuilding situation. So, anyways, moving on. You're looking at their opponents, the Miami Dolphins. They've had a back and forth season, to say the very least. And when I mean back and forth, I mean the fact that let's look at Ryan Tannehill, for example. He was supposed to be the guy for this team, and he was like, as soon as he was drafted by this team, he was supposed to be the guy. He was supposed to be the franchise. But I don't know, 10 seasons, it feels like he's been eight seasons roughly in the NFL. And he's still, you can say, mediocre. So I would definitely consider that a big factor in the rumors that they are trying to move on from him, which I understand. I think it is time to move on from Ryan Tannehill. I think it's looking for a new quarterback. I mean, they only got Jay Cutler last year because Ryan Tannehill was injured in the off-season workouts. So that was also a main reason that happened. Also, you got to look at the fact that, sometimes you just got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. And for Ryan Tannehill, that is, it's folding time. Hate to break it to him, but drafting a quarterback or signing a quarterback in the free agent market, that's up to them. So we'll see how that one goes. But who do I see winning this game? I do see Miami winning this game just because I think overall they're a better team than Buffalo. I know that's not saying much, but it just that's the way it is. And let's look at Cowboys and Giants now. Let's move on. As for the Giants season, they drafted Saquon Barkley in the first round, number 2 overall. And how that turned out to be pretty darn good pickup for them because of the fact that he may be one of the better running backs in the NFL right now. And his career looks to be brighter than ever. And with that, I say it's now time to draft a quarterback. It's now time to move on from Eli Manning. But I think they're going to hold on to him for another year, it feels like. There's no talk of him retiring. There's no talk of him leaving or getting released. I think he's still there. So I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback in the first round, but I think it's probably time to maybe consider it just to have someone behind Eli Manning. But anyways, moving on from that, we look at the Dallas Cowboys season. It started off extremely sloppy, and then they traded a first-round pick for Amari Cooper from the Oakland Raiders, which everyone at one point said, what are you doing? Why are you giving up a first-round pick for Amari Cooper? Not because of his talent, but just based off of, like, a first-round pick seems like it's a really high. And I would agree. It did seem incredibly high at that time to trade for Amari Cooper. And I'm not taking anything away from Amari Cooper. Anytime you get rid of a first-round pick is risky. But sometimes you're going to ask for something a little bit more. But it turned out to be in their favor as they have clinched the NFC East. And now that pick to the Raiders is in the high 20s, which is not as valuable as some people thought when they first traded for him, which would be like a top 10, maybe or at best, at worst, top 15 pick. So it was ingenious, really, to trade and go all in for Amari Cooper because now they are in the playoffs. As for a Super Bowl run, that is still to be determined, but still great for Dallas. I mean, everyone mocked the idea of Amari Cooper getting traded for a first-round pick. Now they're NFC East champions and in the playoffs, and that pick is in the very high, like, that's basically a second-round pick now. So who's laughing now? It's Jerry Jones, and he's laughing at Jerry's world right now. As for this game and who's going to win, give me Dallas because I just don't see the Giants winning this game. Like, it's really, this game is like meaningless, one of those meaningless games that have no writing on it, so it could go either way. Really no reason for either team to really play not really reason for the Cowboys to play their starters. They already have slid into a spot in the playoffs. They have kept their spot. I don't think they can leave that spot or drop a spot. So really no point in playing starters, in my opinion. But we'll see how that game goes. Moving on, we also got the Falcons and the Buccaneers. Both teams are still out of the playoffs. We heard earlier this week, maybe it was even yesterday, that Deshaun Jackson wants out of Tampa Bay. He's sick of the team, and he wants a new team to go to, which begs the question: where would he go? What team would get him? What team would want him? I mean, he's at the end of his career, so that's a big question mark in my opinion on if you want to take Deshaun Jackson or not. He's way past his prime. He's at the end of his career. I wouldn't say it's time to call it quits, but I would say it's getting close to that fact. As for the Falcons, yeah, they came off it's hard to believe that 2 seasons ago they were up by 25 points in the Super Bowl and this close for becoming Super Bowl champions. And, of course, everyone knows what happened. They blew that 25-point lead and lost in overtime, the first overtime in Super Bowl history, which is also a fun little thing. So congratulations to whoever was a part of history. That game was historical in so many different ways. And then they went into next season. They actually made the playoffs by the skin of their teeth. Didn't make it very far, and now they are out of playoffs entirely, which the question to me is that mean it's time to move on? Does that mean it's a rebuilding period type of thing with maybe get a new head coach? I'm not sure what they're going to do, but it's definitely something to consider. Consider all options of what to do and how to regroup for next season. But I would say that he's on the head coach of the Falcons is definitely on thin ice. That's how I see it, at least. And then as for the Buccaneers, like I said, they started off really well. Fitzpatrick looked like an MVP candidate against the Saints in Week 1, and now it just got bad. Like, Fitzpatrick looked great, and then he looked like one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Then Jameis Winston came, and he looked just as bad. But they would still throw a lot of passing yards, but could not get points on the board. Defense couldn't stop anybody. As the season progressed, they got worse and worse. They were milk, basically, this season. Just aged poorly. And now they're basically looking for a high draft pick. As for the winner of this game, I'll go Falcons, just based off high. I know it's probably going to be a highly offensive game because both defenses are lacking in a lot of areas. So I'll say this is a high-scoring game if they play their starters or any reason not to play the starters. Really no reason to play anybody at this moment. This game is utterly pointless just based off it's only for draft positioning. But you're not going to purposely lose the game. So, anyways, moving on. We also have the Jaguars and Texans. As for the Jaguars, this past season they were in the AFC title game against the New England Patriots and actually were close to defeating the New England Patriots and moving on to the Super Bowl for the first time in their franchise history. They've been in the AFC title game multiple times before in their history, but never have made it to the Super Bowl itself. And so they were that close to getting the Super Bowl, and then they didn't. And this season was supposed to be like, oh, this is the year they're going to do it. Everything's going to come together. Their defense is just going to carry them to the promised land. And you're looking at today, and Blake Bortles is the backup quarterback now. Cody Kessler was the main guy for the end of the season. And their season is over at 5-10. 5-11 will get them a top 5 pick. And the question remains, will they be looking for a quarterback in the offseason, or will they look for it in the draft? Obviously, I think the Blake Bortles era is over in Jacksonville after signing that extension. It only took less than a season for him to lose it all, basically. But he still has the contract, so good on him. Anyways, when facing against the Houston Texans, who, with Deshaun Watson returning, are now looking to take a first-round bye if they beat the Jaguars and also have the Patriots lose to the New York Jets. We'll get on that game in a little bit. But there is a lot of options to go on with this when it comes down to who will be in that first round bye. And honestly, the AFC, we can have two completely different first-round buys, as we could have not the Chiefs nor the Patriots as a first-round buy. So we will definitely see how that plays out. But we are going to take a short break. When we get back, we will finish up the rest of Week 17 matchups. This might take 3 segments because of how long I'm going to talk about each team. But I think we're going to talk about each team's how their season went down and how their season became where it is today. But before we go to break, I want to talk about something. What would it be like if we all listen more? Listening to audiobooks inspires us, motivates us, even brings us closer. And there's no better place to listen than Audible. Audible has the largest selection of audiobooks on the planet, and now Audible members get more than ever before. Each month they get 3 titles of their choice, 1 audiobook, 2 Audible originals, and fitness programs they can't get anywhere else. There's never been a better time to experience Audible. Try free for 30 days by visiting audible.com/GSMCbook or by texting the code GSMCbook to 500500. Remember, if you want to try free for 30 days, you can visit audible.com/GSMCbook or by texting the code GSMCbook to 500500.
What happens to your decision-making when you drink? Well, after one drink, you feel confident. A few more, and calling your ex at 1 a.m. seems like a great idea. And you're pretty sure the secret to a great taco is 4-day-old macaroni. The bottom line, drunk you doesn't make great decisions. So you're risking a DUI or worse if you count on him to get you home. Plan before you party. Get home safe. Brought to you by Washington Target Zero.
Welcome to the GSMC Football Podcast. Welcome back, at least. We're talking about each team's matchups and how they got to that point in their respective seasons. So let's keep moving on. We talked about Dolphins, Bills, Falcons, Buccaneers, Cowboys, Giants. Now let's move on. Oh, actually, we also did Jaguars and Texans also. Well, we did. Yeah, we did. Jets and Patriots. Jets drafted Sam Darnold in the first round with the second overall pick, which seemed like the right move, and he's been playing all right. Not great, but still playing relatively well. He played great against Green Bay last week, and he's had some ups and downs in his rookie season. I mean, who hasn't? There's also that sophomore slump, so watch out for that. But I think it takes a couple years of quarterback to marinate in the NFL to get ready, so you just got to be patient when it comes. The Jets organization just needs to be patient with Sam Darnold as this continues, and also the fact they are playing the Patriots, who, yes, they were in the Super Bowl last year. They did lose the Super Bowl. However, this team doesn't look as good as they have in the recent memory. Yes, they won their division again, but their division is arguably one of the weakest, if not the weakest in the NFL. I mean, minus the Patriots, you have the Bills, the Dolphins, and then you have the Jets. And the Patriots get to play each of those teams twice. So that's 2 wins against Buffalo, 2 wins against Dolphins, that makes 4, and 2 wins against New York, possibly, which makes 6. So with their 10 wins, you can chalk up over half of them to divisional round play. And the teams they lost to, well, actually, you can scratch off one of those wins from divisional play because the Dolphins did come up with that Miami Miracle play. That's what's being called now, is the Miami Miracle play against New England 2 weeks ago, when they put in Gronkowski as a safety save for the Hail Mary, which didn't work out. So that's how that went. And I just don't see this as the same Patriots team. Yes, they have a chance to still get a first-round bye, But I can see the Patriots being upset here by the Jets. I know it's in Foxborough, but I can still see a Jets upset. And with that, if the Texans beat the Jacksonville Jaguars in Houston, they would take the second seed and a first-round bye, which would be huge for the Texans because they would be even more dangerous than they already are if they have a 1-week rest. But, again, it's the Patriots. They'll probably win this game. But, again, it would not surprise me if the Jets pull it off. Moving on now. We got more morning games. We got the Lions and the Packers. The Packers coming off that overtime victory against the New York Jets after a 15-point comeback. Thanks in kind to Aaron Rodgers. And with this game, it really has no meaning in theory. Well, in reality, it really has no meaning. But I don't know. I just feel like this is a rivalry game, and the Lions don't like the Packers and vice versa. Two of some of the oldest teams in the NFL as well. And I will have to say that either whoever loses this game will eventually be the winner in the long run, just due to draft positioning might benefit them in the long run and get them a better draft pick, because both these teams need defensive efforts, defensive help, at least in the draft. And with this being, I just got the chills. With this being one of the top draft for defense in quite some time, it's a win-win situation for whoever loses this game. Not only lose the game, you get a higher draft pick. With the higher draft pick, you get someone great on defense, and you are looking better at the future in your rebuilding period. Both these teams are obviously in a rebuilding period. The Packers going to be looking for a head coach this offseason as well. So, honestly, it all comes down to who the head coach will be for the Packers during the draft time and how that rebuilding period will start. Moving on now to Panthers and Saints. Saints looking to beat 14-2 and get the number 1 seed, not only in the NFC, but be the best overall record in the NFL, which will give them not only huge momentum in the playoffs, but also home field advantage throughout the rest of the playoffs, which New Orleans is a great home field advantage, and it's always tough to play in the Superdome in New Orleans. So obviously, New Orleans is looking pretty good as Super Bowl favorites right now, going into this Week 17 matchup against the Carolina Panthers. And poor Carolina, this team was 6-2. Right behind New Orleans and looking like serious contenders in the playoffs. They just lost their 7 straight. 6-2 to 6-9 is maybe one of the biggest collapses in NFL history. There's been points where the team has 9 wins, 9-2 on the season, and then lose 5 straight and don't make the playoffs. But going 6-2 and losing 7 straight and not only not make the playoffs, but possibly finishing the season with 8 straight losses is one of the biggest collapses you will ever find. We had Cam Newton with his shoulder, and unknown what his injury consists of, but it's probably going to lead to surgery because you can just tell his shoulder, something is seriously wrong in his shoulder. And then you have Christian McCaffrey putting on one of the best seasons ever for the running back at a dual threat running back position, and he doesn't get the credit he deserves because his team doesn't help him out because they keep losing those games. And so, obviously, I got the Saints on this one. I think the Saints are going to win. I think they're going to have 14-2 season, one of their best seasons ever. And I'll talk with Mark on Monday about playoff predictions and who's going to be in the Super Bowl. But it would not surprise me if the Saints are in the Super Bowl. I don't think it would surprise anyone if the Saints are in the Super Bowl. But, again, playoff time, anything can happen. Like the Eagles making the playoffs again and Nick Foles going back to the Super Bowl. That is a legitimate possibility right now. Anyways, we got another actually pretty important, probably the most important game to talk about so far. Bears and Vikings. As for the Bears, if they win this game and the Rams lose their game against the 49ers, which we'll talk about next as well, they will take the number 2 seed in the NFL NFC playoffs, which would be huge for Chicago. And as for Chicago's season, no one thought it would end like this. No one thought of this as the potential to be one of the best teams and one of the best defensive teams in the NFL. How they played last year compared to this year is astronomical, and it has to lead to one man, and that is Khalil Mack. With Khalil Mack's trade from Oakland to Chicago with multiple first-round selections for the Raiders, it's clear to me, maybe it is clear to you, I'm not entirely sure, that the Bears won this trade. Yes, they lost 2 first-round draft picks for Khalil Mack, but Khalil Mack is such a great player. He's making that team into a serious title contender. That is saying a lot. And also the fact that, and then you look at the Vikings, who signed Kirk Cousins this offseason after making the NFC Championship game in 13-3 season with Case Keenum, adding Kirk Cousins to a fully guaranteed contract worth $84 million is absurd, you could say, now looking at the record. But at the time, it's like, that is, you got to get a guy like that, and you got to seal him up, and you got to keep him from going anywhere. And obviously, the season did not turn out the way they wanted it to. I think a lot of people thought this team would be maybe another 13-3 season. Just adding Kirk Cousins will only benefit them. But with a 8-6-1 record, they are doing pretty bad, rebounding from a great season and nearly making the Super Bowl. Not against the Eagles, because they got crushed against the Eagles, but getting there with that miracle catch against it was the Minneapolis Miracle against the New Orleans Saints, ironically enough, the other bye-week team. So, anyways, Bears are probably going to win this, and if the Vikings do lose this and the Philadelphia Eagles win their game, the Eagles will take their place in the playoffs and steal that playoff spot from the Vikings, which would be huge for the Eagles, and I'll get on that in a little bit. But I do see the Bears winning and putting the playoff spot for the Vikings in jeopardy. But I do see this as a hard-fought matchup, because both teams need to win this to not only for the Vikings to stay in the playoffs, but for the Bears to get a huge first-round bye would be insane, and maybe give them more of a chance to make the Super Bowl. As to that other second seed that's taken right now, the Los Angeles Rams will be playing the San Francisco 49ers in LA at the Coliseum. And with that, the 49ers are the number two overall pick as of right now, compared to the number 2 seed in the NFL NFC playoffs for the Los Angeles Rams. I will have to give the edge to the Rams on this one. I think they need this win. They have to win this to stay in the bye week for the divisional round, which would be huge. Any bye week in the playoffs is huge, regardless what team you are. So, obviously a huge game for the Rams to keep on and hold on to that bye first round. As for the 49ers, they lose this game. They have an opportunity to get the number 1 overall pick, but at the beginning of the season, they were looked at as a team that can make the squeeze into the playoffs. But in Week 3 against Kansas City, Jimmy Garoppolo, their star quarterback, they signed that offseason to a massive deal, tore his ACL. So they had to bring in C.J. Beathard. C.J. Beathard struggled, so they brought in this kid from the practice squad, Nick Mullins, who played excellent. And so now here we are. One team is looking for the number 1 overall pick. One team is looking for the number 2 seed and keeping it that way. So we will see how those things transpire during Week 17 in LA at the Coliseum. As for the other NFC West teams, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Arizona Cardinals, and the Seattle Seahawks, who at the beginning of the season were projected to go to the bottom of the barrel in the NFC West, maybe not just in the NFC West, but at the bottom of the NFC conference entirely, maybe even the NFL entirely. Who knows? The projections there. But that enraged the Seahawks. They were motivated, and they got to the playoffs. They got as a wild card spot. They couldn't get it past the Rams because of how well the Rams played at the beginning of the season. But even though the Legend of Boom is gone, you can still see that Russell Wilson is still playing his butt off, and he has teammates around him that are talented. And Pete Carroll did get a signed extension to the 2021 season where he will be 70 years old. Honestly, he doesn't look that old to me. He doesn't look like he's in his late 60s. He looks pretty good for his age, all things considered. I mean, whatever his regimen is, keep doing it. Eat lots of fruit or something. He kind of reminds me, he looks a little bit like Bill Walsh, if that rings any bells to anybody. That he has a resemblance to him, doesn't he? I might be crazy, but I think he does. But we are going to take another short break. When we get back, we'll finish up more Week 17 stuff. Maybe we'll get through something else, who knows. But going into detail on this, we need to think about how these teams got here and what the situation is when the playoffs arrive. But first, I want to talk to you once again about Audible, because there is no better place to listen to audiobooks than Audible. Audible has the largest selection of audiobooks on the planet, and now Audible members get more than ever before. Each month, they get 3 titles of their choice: 1 audiobook, 2 Audible originals, and fitness programs they can't get anywhere else. There's never been a better time to experience Audible. Try it free for 30 days by visiting audible.com/GSMCbook or texting the code GSMCbook to 500500. Once again, you want to get this 30-day trial offer with Audible, go to audible.com/GSMCbook or text the code GSMCbook to 500500.
What happens to your decision-making when you drink? Well, after one drink, you feel confident. A few more, and calling your ex at 1 a.m. seems like a great idea. And you're pretty sure the secret to a great taco is 4-day-old macaroni. The bottom line, drunk you doesn't make great decisions. So you're risking a DUI or worse if you count on him to get you home. Plan before you party. Get home safe. Brought to you by Washington Target.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Football Podcast. Finishing up Week 17, finishing up how these teams got to where they are in the final week of the NFL season in 2018. I know it's rough, but we'll see football even more soon because we got playoffs to talk about. Don't talk about playoffs? I can't do that voice. I can try, but I will not be successful. Oh, Russ, you were so funny on that one episode of Friends you were on. Any Friends fans there? You? You Friends fan? Office? Probably one of them. Anyways, moving on to the next game. We have... I don't know why I'm talking like this. Okay. We just talked about Bears and Vikings. Now let's go to Steelers and Bengals. Both teams out of the play... Actually, Steelers are still looking for a playoff spot, but they need a miracle. They have 8 wins, but they need a win, and Baltimore lost because they have the work cut out for them, unfortunately, because they're playing the Cleveland Browns. The Ravens are at least, and that could lead to a serious shuffle in the playoff seeding, for sure. Anyways, moving on, we got that Friday feeling where you're almost done with the week. Ugh, I'm not the only one that feels this way. I know you're all feeling it too. I know we're all feeling it. We're all feeling this Friday vibe going on, you know. We're all watching the clock. We're all watching the day. We're all just thinking about our delicious beds that just feel very... You ever do that when you go back home and it feels unbelievably comfortable than it ever has in your life after a long day? That is the dream, isn't it? I think that's the dream. I believe in a dream. Well, there is a dream. A sweet dream of sleeping. Anyways, all right, I'm getting off topic. We just finished talking about what game was it, Mark? Oh, wait, Mark's not here. But Mark will be here Monday, so check out Mark when he gets back, because he will be back soon rather than later. We were talking about Bengals and Steelers. Bengals, Hugh Jackson is probably going to be their next head coach. Marvin Lewis has been around for 19 seasons, it feels like. Something around there. Maybe even 16 seasons, something around that mark. Second longest tenure coach in the NFL, and he hasn't won one lousy playoff game. How does it take you that long to win a playoff game? He's not going to win it this year, obviously, because they're not in the playoffs. But something's got to be done. You've been on this team for over a decade. Well, almost 2 decades now. You couldn't win one playoff game? How do you still have a job, my friend? And they say Hugh Jackson's going to take up as a coach. And I don't agree with that personally. I think his record in Cleveland speaks for itself. And even when they had the talent, he was still losing games. So he obviously was not the coach. He wasn't the leader they needed. And maybe that'll benefit Cincinnati. Who knows? But the fact remains that these Ohio teams are kind of bad luck at the moment for Cleveland fans. Fortunately, they have the Cleveland Indians instead of the Cavaliers now. But hey, that's just a theory. I guess it's a theory. Whatever. Anyways, I have the Steelers taking this one. I don't see them making the playoffs, though, but I still see the Steelers winning this one. Like I said, the Browns have a chance to ruin the Ravens' party and beat them and make them lose a spot in the playoffs, in the AFC playoffs, that is. And with the talent that Cleveland has and looking for a head coach this next season, the future looks as bright as ever right now for the Cleveland Browns. And that's why I'm saying the Cleveland Browns to win this game over Baltimore and just maybe cost them an opportunity to go to the postseason. Moving on, once again, we talk about NFC West teams. We talked about the Rams and Niners and how the Rams are looking for a first-round bye. The Niners looking for the first overall pick. Same thing in this kind of scenario, but instead of a first-round bye, there is no first-round bye because the Seahawks have already clinched a playoff spot. They cannot move higher. They cannot move lower. They are just there, which benefits everybody, which benefits the Cardinals as they have nothing to play for either. If they lose, they get the number 1 overall pick. If they win, they lose that chance to the 49ers because they beat the 49ers twice this season. So, honestly, it's a must-lose situation for the Cardinals, if anything else, because why wouldn't you want the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft ever? So, yes, I am sure that the Cardinals are going to lose this game and get a pick first in the first round, number 1 overall. That's just how I see that going. Moving on. We are going to move to the AFC West. We got the Chargers and Broncos and at Mile High. And with this, if the Chargers win and the Chiefs lose their game against Oakland, they will achieve the first seed in the AFC, which would be huge for LA as they would get home field advantage. But as always, home field advantage isn't really home field advantage for the LA Chargers, as the StubHub Center is usually packed by fans of the other team. Which must be kind of demoralizing because they're playing so well and the stadium they're playing in is filled to brim with the opposite fan base. At their house, it just seems kind of demoralizing. But I'm sure if they do win this game and the Chiefs do lose and they do get a number 1 seed, then there will be some Charger fans filing in. I think that's what they're hoping for. But again, they're facing a really talented team. Did I say talented? I meant unlucky. Because when it comes to the Chiefs, they're playing the worst team in the AFC right now. And they will have to, and the Oakland Raiders, I mean, and they will have to win this game to keep in the hopes for a first-round bye and the number 1 seed in the AFC. But if Oakland does win, they lose their chance at a high draft pick also. So it's honestly it's almost been a factor to let this Chiefs beat the Raiders, then the Raiders competing and trying to beat the Chiefs in all aspects of it. But obviously that's not what's going to happen. The Raiders kind of cost themselves a chance at number 1 overall pick. They went for number 2 and then won against Denver to number 4. They lose this, they might get a pick higher than number 4. Who knows? But definitely hurt their chances of getting the number 1 overall pick. I'm not entirely sure if you can get the number 1 overall pick, but that's just how it goes. But again, it's one of those things in where Oakland is playing their final game. The final game is probably in Oakland. They just finished their final game in Oakland, and it was a victory. So way to end it on top. And who knows where they're gonna end up next season? It's still a mystery. And then finally, we have Sunday Night Football. Colts and Titans. Colts started this season strong, and Andrew Luck, arguably the comeback player of the year. And obviously for the Chiefs, they've been hot this entire season. I've got to talk about them. Let's talk about them real quick. The Chiefs started off hot this season and stayed hot or remained hot, and Patrick Mahomes has made very strong possibility of being MVP with 48 touchdowns in the season, 2 more to 50. If he gets to 50, then I would say he gets MVP, but that's just a guess. And also the fact that when you look at the Colts, Andrew Luck, if this is any other season, this would be MVP-like numbers, but since everyone else is playing so well, he'll just get comeback player of the year, which is great because his shoulder surgery, many people thought he would never throw the ball again, and he's throwing it at such speed and velocity, and T.Y. Hilton's having a great year, and this is all leading to a playoff situation against the Titans. Whoever wins this game between the Titans and the Colts, they're in the playoffs at the final seed, if I'm correct. And so with that, I got to go with the Colts, though, just because I think they're a better team overall. Marcus Mariota is a big question mark to me if he's even playing. And Blaine Gabbert will be an exclamation point saying, oh, God, no, if I'm a Titans fan. But again, you're looking at the other side of the spectrum, the Colts. Andrew Luck's been playing on top of his game, arguably most likely comeback player of the year in the NFL, at least the NFL. And then you have other players there on the Colts that really support him, like Marlon Mack, Eric Ebron, and so on and so forth. So I would say that the Colts could be a dark horse for a Super Bowl run. Who knows if they get past Tennessee? So this is anyone's game right here. But again, we're going to take a short, quick break. When we get back, we'll be talking about every playoff scenario there can be in a draft scenario and all that good stuff. And my prediction of who might be going all the way to the Super Bowl. We will talk about that more with Mark, but I will give my brief insight on how that's all going to go down. We'll be right back right after this. Don't go away.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome to the final segment of the GSMC Football Podcast. We talked about every game that's happening in Week 17. Now let's go to playoff scenarios. But let's first talk about what the playoffs are as of right now. As of right now, the Chiefs are the first seed. New England Patriots are the second seed. This is AFC. Spoiler alert. I know that's pretty obvious. But Houston Texans, third seed. And the reason they are third and New England's second is head-to-head. The Patriots defeated the Texans this year, so Patriots get the first seed. The top seed come over the Texans because they have the same record. Fourth, not clinched yet, is the Baltimore Ravens. Fifth, who is clinched, is the Los Angeles Chargers, but they can still get a first-round bye, which if they do, they would switch off with Kansas City on that one. And as for this final seed, it's still to be determined because it's between the Colts and the Titans. And if Baltimore wins, they're in. I don't know what happens if they lose. They could lose and then Pittsburgh wins. Would they take their spot? Maybe something of that along that lines. We'll come down to tiebreakers at the end of that period. But that is the AFC. We'll briefly talk about the NFC also. In the NFC, the first seed is the best seed, or the best team in the NFL, arguably, the 13-2 New Orleans Saints. If they win, they'll be 14-2 and have the best record in the NFL. But if they lose, they will. In other teams, maybe the Rams win, or if the Rams win, they would tie for the first best record in the NFL at 13-3. But I think they would rather take a 14-2 and just be the solo best team in the NFL, record-wise. Number 2, like I said, the Rams at 12-3. Bears at number 3. 4 is the Dallas Cowboys. 5 is Seattle Seahawks. 6, but not yet clinched, is the Minnesota Vikings. And with that is, if the Eagles win their game on Sunday and the Vikings lose to the Bears on Sunday, the new 6th seed will be the Philadelphia Eagles with the help of Nick Foles. Now, this begs the question, if Nick Foles gets to this promised land, is Carson Wentz's days numbered as an Eagle? I would assume so, because just records speak for themselves. And overall, if you were the guy that's bringing them to playoff games and Super Bowls and all that stuff, you'd rather have him than the guy that does pretty well one season and then kind of just has nagging injuries ever since. But I think just maybe hold on to him as much as Carson Wentz, that is, as much as possible until you know for certain that this is your guy, Nick Foles, that is. So that's just how I see it. And looking at all these scenarios, there's only 3 teams that are outside looking in that could still make it. There's 2 in the AFC, and that is the Titans and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then, obviously, I just said the Philadelphia Eagles are the outside looking in, but still have a chance to make the playoffs with a little help. But here's my prediction for the seeding in each conference, and see if you agree with me. Let's go. Let's go. Hey. Oh. Remember that song? Good times. Anyways. For the AFC, I do not have the Chiefs as the number 1 seed. Yes, you heard me right. I have the Chargers taking the number 1 seed. And that means the Raiders will defeat the Chiefs this Sunday, which would be a huge upset. But again, this team, since losing Kareem Hunt, has been struggling, so it would not be the biggest surprise to me. But I would definitely put it as a major concern entering the playoffs, because then who knows who could take the Eagles could take their place and be the new hotness. You know, the classic Men in Black 2 quote, old and busted, new hotness. So are the Vikings old and busted, or are they still the new hotness? We will find out as we get closer to Sunday. But here I go. So for the 1 seed, I have the Chargers. For the 2 seed, I have the Texans in the AFC. Yes, I don't have either the Patriots or the Chiefs on my 1 seed. I see them both losing this week against 2 weak opponents such as the Jets and the Jets for the Patriots and the Raiders for the Chiefs. So that is a good possibility of happening. And so I will take the Chargers and the Texans as the 2 teams with bye weeks. I will give number 3 to New England. I will give number 4 to still Baltimore. I will give 5 to Kansas City. And I will give 6 to Indianapolis defeating the Tennessee Titans. So that's how I see it, at least, in the AFC. As for the NFC is concerned, I don't see a lot of change in this one compared to the AFC. I see the Saints keeping their first seed. I see the Rams taking the 2nd seed. And I see the Bears still sticking with the 3rd seed. 4th seed, Dallas. 5th seed, Seattle. And 6th seed will not be Minnesota due to the fact that they are playing a much better team in the Bears than in a game they want to win to get a first round bye. So I don't see the Vikings overcoming that. But yeah, and I see that as the Eagles' spot. So like I said, Saints won. Or I'll do this here to recap before we call it a day. The 1 seeds will go to Los Angeles Chargers and the New Orleans Saints. The number 2 seeds will go to Los Angeles Rams and the Houston Texans. Number 3 would go to New England in the AFC. Number 3 would go to LA Rams. Or I'm sorry, I apologize. The 3rd seed would go to Chicago, and the 3rd seed would go to New England. The 4th seed would stick with Baltimore, and the 4th seed would stick with Dallas. The 5th seed would stick with Seattle, obviously. The 5th would result in the Kansas City Chiefs instead of the Los Angeles Chargers. And as for the 6 seeds, it would be Philadelphia in the NFC and the Indianapolis Colts in the NFC. But thank you so much, or AFC, excuse me. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Please tune us in on Monday. We'll have the aftermath of Week 17. We'll have Mark Souza back. We will talk about the playoffs because they'll be coming closer and closer and closer. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jeff Melanoff, and I will see you next time.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.